Breast milk science. It's a thing, and it's our thing. We're ByHeart. We're an infant formula company on a mission to get a lot closer to the most super food on the planet, breast milk. Our patented protein blend has more of the important and most abundant proteins found in breast milk. We're the first and only U.S.-made formula to use organic, grass-fed whole milk, not skim. We make our formula in our own factories in Iowa, Oregon, and Pennsylvania, using a small batch manufacturing process that works to preserve the integrity of our ingredients. We ran the largest clinical trial by a new infant formula company in 25 years, and clinically proved benefits like easier digestion, less gas, and softer poops versus a leading infant formula. We were the first infant formula company to earn the Clean Label Project Purity Award. And while we've put a lot into ByHeart, there's a long list of things you won't see on our ingredient list, like no corn syrup, no maltodextrin, no GMO ingredients, no soy, no palm oil. ByHeart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.
That city that's just south of Payson, just before you get to Payson, it's where all the bicycles on the right-hand side. Right.
For tangible evidence, we have the house, we have the ATM, we have the Forerunner, and that's it.
He said, people are hiding in there right now, you tell me. This is where you go to hide.
We have a black and white video from an ATM from 20 years ago. And now I think we would have traffic cameras. I think we would have surveillance video from all different angles.
This is True Crime Arizona, Finding Robert Fisher, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
I knew what he was doing. Now I look back at it. I was a perfect person to go with him up there because I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I was just a good guy in a quad. You can go up there and probably don't want to be there anyway, so he can't wait to go home.
By now listening to this season on the podcast, you all know who Herb Greenbeck is and the camping trip he and Robert Fisher went on 2 weeks before the murders and house explosion. There were some odd things Robert showed Herb during that trip that now seem even more concerning.
He said, people are hiding in there right now, you tell me. This is where you go to hide.
This podcast is full of theories. What we haven't talked about until now is Herb's theory of what Robert did and where he went after the crime.
When we were eating breakfast, he was talking to some guy, and the guy said, yeah, he works in that city that's just south of Payson. Just before you get to Payson, it's where all the bicycles on the right-hand side. Right. This is what this guy did, and I would never forget this. He says, well, I work in Rye. He goes, well, what do you do? He goes, well, I lay tile. He says, I got a motorcycle. I can ride through the mountains. I can get to Rye in 2 hours. I work, and then I ride back. He says, well, you pass any houses? He goes, no, it's just like hunting. He said it was just out in the nature. And so we went on.
Herb remembers the questions continued with anybody Robert would pass.
Well, then when we took off on our ride, we would see people out watering their grass because there's civilization up there, you know. And he'd always stop and want to talk to them. And he'd say, well, you know, how long have you lived here? What's going on? You got much activity up here? It was just very strange. But I had a couple beers, I was quad riding, and it was just, you know, everybody has their own thing. So I just roll with the punches. He's leading, I'm following, I just do whatever he wanted to do.
A lot of people who live in Arizona might not even know where the town of Rye is. I didn't before this investigation. The latest census shows less than 100 people live there, and the town itself is less than a square mile big. There are a few businesses off the highway, which back in 2001 included a motorcycle shop and one bar. Based on the kind of bizarre things Robert was asking townsfolk around both Rye and Young, Herb told us his own theory, one I had not heard before.
He stashed a motorcycle up there. He left his dog, couldn't take him on the motorcycle.
You think he had a motorcycle?
Yeah, I think that's what he did. He stashed a motorcycle up there, and when he went up there with the dog and him, he loved his dog Blue. He said goodbye. He jumped on that bike. He drove over to Rye. He met somebody. They took off, and that's his adventure started. He was gone in 4 hours.
This is the first time I've ever heard the motorcycle theory.
Yeah, 100%, because I was at the restaurant when the tile guy said he had a motorcycle that he goes to Rye, and how easy it is to get to Rye. And there's no houses, there's no way to follow him.
So where do you think he got the motorcycle from then?
I think he picked it up somewhere, I don't know. So the entire weekend we were together, he was most interested in how long it took this guy to get on his bike and get to Rye. And what did he see when he went to Rye? Was he going through fire roads, homes, neighborhoods? And the guy said, it's like camping, it's desolate. It's just only a motorcycle can get down this road.
And he seemed fixated on that.
Totally fixated on that.
That was such a detailed theory from Herb, and it's hard not to believe there could be some credibility to that. He knew Robert, he had been with Robert, he had watched his actions days prior to the tragedy. But Herb doesn't think Robert got very far.
Do you think he's in Arizona?
Yeah.
Sergio and I hit the road again, towards Rye this time. We wanted to see if we could find this bar Robert was reportedly seen in back in the day. It's such a small town, it wasn't out of the question that locals or bikers who may have gone to the bar in 2001 would still be going in 2022. We couldn't find any bar off the highway and saw a sheriff's deputy pulled over on a side street. We asked him if there was any bar in the area, and he said, yes, just go down the street a bit and you can't miss it. So that's what we did.
Okay, so we know Herb's story involved the town of Rye, bikers, and some sort of bar. So we are literally on the search for any bar in Rye, and we came across Jake's Corner Bar. We don't know if this is the one he's talking about, but we're gonna go in and see what we can find out.
To give you a visual of what this bar looked like, it was a total dive bar in the middle of nowhere, decorated to the nines outside and inside with motorcycle paraphernalia, tires, beer signs, etc. Definitely the local watering hole. There was a wooden sign at the door that said, "Bikers Welcome." Okay, that seemed promising and exactly what we were looking for.
If we're looking for a bar in Rye or a Rye bar, are we in the right spot?
Yeah, you're just south. The other bar got torn down last year, actually.
How long was it there for, do you know?
Oh, Tad, how long was that bar there? It was probably there since, what, the 60s?
Are there a lot of bikers here?
A lot of bikers. A lot of bike traffic through Jake's Corner here, and then Rye used to get a lot of bike traffic back in the day.
That's Matt Robeson, a local who was sitting at the bar when we walked in and agreed to talk to us. He was familiar with the Robert Fisher case and certainly knew who he was the second I brought up his name.
As far as bikers go, that the story we had heard was that, you know, the weekend before, Robert and his friend had met some biker who had talked about the Rye bar and talked about being able to bike on a road that no one would see. Does any of that ring a bell to you?
You know, on the highway and that, the 188, or any of these highways through here would probably be, you know, good spots. There's old back roads out the backside of Rye that go all the way to Young and, you know, through the 76 Ranch and all through them areas.
Is it on a map?
Not really. A lot of the trails out here aren't on maps.
That one trail that you mentioned that goes from here to Young, I mean, how difficult is that to ride?
It's pretty difficult. Yeah, you wouldn't want to take no street bike, or, I mean, yeah, you'd have to be an experienced rider to go up over there. Yeah, there used to be an old motorcycle kind of yard up in Rye right next to the bar, actually.
Okay, that's good to know. Not there anymore either?
No, they had a big fire there, you know, probably 10 years back, and then it kind of got all salvaged out.
What was it called?
All bikes.
So it's feasible that Robert could have had a motorcycle or a bike and put it up near where his car was and taken it on a road that nobody would have seen?
Yeah, I guess it's probable, yeah.
That was all very telling, and in my opinion, only added credibility to Herb's theory, at least that it was a realistically possible scenario. There were a couple other guys in the bar.
See, this guy was just talking about it.
One of which told me his ranch nearby was searched during the hunt for Robert Fisher, but they didn't want to talk on camera about it. Every single person in that bar knew who Robert Fisher was and knew quite a bit about the case. A few days later, back at the station, Sergio and I found more file video from the Fisher case, old archived tapes of stories in our newscasts from decades ago. On one of the tapes were 2 shots of what appeared to be that old Rye bar right off the highway, but there was no context on the tape of what our reporter and photographer found there in 2001, or if any more information came from that. The problem with all of this is There's no concrete evidence that anybody saw Robert Fisher in the woods or in Young or in Rye.
No one actually saw him up there or actually put eyes on him, so I guess we have to go back to when we saw him at the ATM.
It's extremely frustrating to Scottsdale PD detectives Hugh Lockerbie and John Heinzelman.
For tangible evidence, we have the house, we have the ATM, we have the Forerunner, and that's it. It's tough to make a puzzle with 3 pieces.
Obviously, I'm not a detective, but if he were to try to pull this off from now,
Yeah,
kill the family, I don't think he could have done this.
I completely 100% agree with you.
I think if this same case happened today, I think it would be a little bit more difficult with more video cameras, with more things. We would do a more thorough neighborhood canvass, and so especially with doorbell cameras and things now, we're finding more success with that. We have a black and white video from an ATM from 20 years ago. And now I think we would have traffic cameras. I think we would have, again, surveillance video from all different angles.
Since our entire investigation has been boots on the ground, we wanted to see just how many more cameras we could see and find on the short walk from where the Fisher home was to where the ATM was. In 2001, all they had were those few shots from the ATM.
There's going to be tons of different cameras around here.
Another ring right there.
Another ring right there. Like, is that a camera or is that not a camera?
I think it is a camera.
I've already seen like 8 cameras.
So that was one. This would have told us with all these cameras what time he left the house and where he went. And that's just a part we've been missing this whole time.
The Fisher home wasn't far from where Brittany was going to school at Supai Middle School. Remember this from episode 1?
Children here at Supai Elementary School had a special ceremony today for Brittany Fisher. On her birthday, they dedicated a little tree and a plaque. The plaque says, "In memory of Brittany Fisher, we will never forget you, April 27th, 2001.
I wanted to see if the tree was still there. I don't think Supai Middle School is still open or still exists. It's not listed anymore on Scottsdale Unified's website, but I think the building and campus is still there. It was. It's just now a different school. Since it's summer, not many people were on campus, so Sergio and I didn't even know where to start. Luckily, we found a maintenance worker inside and asked about the tree and plaque. He knew exactly what we were talking about right away and led us across the campus.
Can you see it though from right there? Yeah. Yes, you can see.
It's cool that it's still here though, after all these years.
The interesting part about our investigation into the Robert Fisher case is one thing has continued to lead to another, whether that was a new tip or theory, new information, or in this case, another crime, and it came from out of nowhere. We were recording a completely different podcast episode about how detectives convince violent criminals to confess to crimes. The interview was with a former homicide detective in the Valley who has decades of experience.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing.
We had wrapped up the interview and mentioned to him we were in the middle of the Robert Fisher investigation. That's when he said to me and Sergio, "Oh, I have information you have to look into that nobody's checked out yet, a credible crime that may have involved Robert Fisher right after he disappeared." All the pictures we reference in this podcast can be found on azfamily.com. Just search Brianna's Journal. Coming up on True Crime Arizona, Finding Robert Fisher.
What do you think happened to him? And where is he now?
I'm split on my opinion as to what happened.
Do you feel you've gotten the answer as to why he did this?
No, not yet. I can guess, I can give you my opinion.
What is it?
Well, I mean,
I'm interested to know.
you're interested to know.
Yeah, I think he killed the kids to get back at Mary.
True Crime Arizona, the podcast, is hosted by me, Brianna Whitney, and produced by Sergio Hernandez. It's a production of Arizona's Family, 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.
This is True Crime Arizona, Finding Robert Fisher, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.